Alright, so I must do another recording. So, I've had people say, oh, where did he grow up? And it keeps going back this revolving circle. Tamworth. I didn't grow up in Tamworth. I didn't grow up in Tamworth. It's that simple. So, what happened was, and I just want to explain this again because my mother's used some type of scale, dude. She's lied and scammed. I just, look, when you've got toxic people like that, you just got to cut them out. My family's toxic. So I didn't grow up in Tamworth. What happened was, and I'll tell you the truth. So my dad's Mark Ian Fleming, Mum's first husband. Okay, Mum is Caroline Purdy. Mum was a paralegal. My dad was a builder. Mum was actually born in Mum is born in Darlinghurst, whichever what people believe. She's born in Darlinghurst. She started her life in Rozelle, then they moved to Medowie, then they moved to Blacktown in 1962. I know the facts. Dad's parents, my grandparents, moved from the inner city to Parramatta around 1953. I've got a good memory. From having conversations with my grandmother Ruby, 1953 they moved to, Wentworthville, where, the Parramatta area. And that was 1953. So my grandfather Stanley Fleming's from Botany Bay. My grandmother, Ruby Jean Hill, she's born in Five Dock. She's raised in Abbotsford, Jemoyne. My mum's father, Reg Purdy, he's from Balmain, Rozelle. My mum's mother, Lola May, she's from, that house in Piper Street was there right up until I was 20 before it was sold. So Piper Street, Leichhardt. Like they think we're from Tamworth. We're not from Tamworth. So what happened was, because my grandparents moved to the suburbs, then my parents met in Parramatta, actually. They met. And then 1977, they got married. Dad divorced Mum in the 80s. So I was actually born in the western suburbs and raised in Rooty Hill. But because my mum worked in the city, I was always in the city. And I don't know why Mum keeps denying this. Nan, my great-grandmother, was still, she moved back to the house in Leichhardt in 1989. All of our families, because you got to look at it this way. The only ones that moved from the city to the suburbs was my grandparents, because my grandfather's mother still lived in Newtown. But that's the thing. So Newtown's where my mum's grandmother lived. Leichhardt's where my mum's other grandmother lived. All of our family are from the inner city suburbs of Sydney. We're not from Tamworth. We are not from Tamworth. Lillian still, she was still living in Newtown when I was born. She died in Newtown. Same my great-grandmother who I grew up with, she was still living in Leichhardt. All of the family is from the inner city suburbs of Sydney. We're not from Tamworth. And we're technically not from the suburbs. They moved to the suburbs. So the only people that moved to the suburbs was Nan and Pop, Reg and Lola, and Nan and Pop, Nan and Pop, Reg and Lola Purdy, Nan and Pop, which is Stanley and Ruby Fleming, they moved to the suburbs. The rest of my family stayed in the inner city suburbs of Sydney, meaning the rest of the family I was close to. So you've got family members to do with my nan, to do with my pop. Well, I wasn't really close to the pop side, but to do with my nan I was. And that's the truth. Mum's cousin, my mother's cousin, Brian Keegan, still lives in the Balmain, Leichhardt area, like around there somewhere. He still lives there, so that's where they're from. So then you've got, so my dad, Mark Fleming, divorced Mum, and then Mark Jeffrey Rackley, Mum's second husband. Mark Jeffrey Rackley moved from Marion to country town Adelaide when he was a teenager. So he likes the country. Anyway, he had his first wife there in country town Adelaide and his first children, which is Michelle Rackley, Belinda Rackley, Daniel Rackley, so my stepbrother who lives in Tamworth, and Kimberly Rackley. And when he divorced his first wife, he moved back to Sydney to Marion, then got with my mother. And they got married. My mum was an idiot on the rebound. And basically, he'd lived so long in the country, he wanted to move to the country. That's why my mother ended up in New England. So in 1989, she moved to the New England area. That's why. And she can go, oh, no, it was the right move or whatever. It's like, no, you would never have moved if your second husband wasn't the one that kept pushing. He's the one that found Tamworth. He's the one that actually found Tamworth. My mother's second husband, Mark Rackley, found Tamworth and kept pushing about moving there because he wanted to go back to the country. That's how we ended up there, but I was 10. So I was 10 years of age when my mother moved, and I was like, oh, fuck this shit. I'm not coming here. I'm not moving here. And this was because of my stepfather. It's like they wanted me to move there. I'm like, no, I went back to Sydney. So I didn't grow up in Tamworth, and this is where the government's wrong, and this is where the 9 years of damages to me will be paid. It's that simple. You're going to pay it. I said the truth. I didn't grow up in Tamworth. I barely lived there for 6 years. Barely lived there for 6 years. And we only went up there because my mum moved with her second husband. So she moved with her second husband. Her second husband, nothing to do with me. My mother moved with her second husband. There's the facts. Stick to the facts. Her second husband's lived a lot of his life in the country. Her second husband lives in Cessnock or something now. That's what he wants. That's his country life. Okay, my mother followed him. She can spin this all she wants, but the facts are the facts. And if you stand in front of a magistrate can look at the facts and go, is it plausible? Is this plausible? Because you've got Mark Rackley that lived a lot of his life in a country town, came back to Sydney. Carol didn't. Carol's working in the city. Carol's never lived in a country town. Fucking bullshit. And Carol was living with, like, when she was with the twins' father, Mark Fleming, from Parramatta. Like, seriously. And then you've got, Mark Rackley moved, and it was plausible that Mark Rackley would have wanted the exact same environment. He raised his first family, and so Justin's telling the truth. Carol's lying because it was Mark Rackley that brought up Tamworth. And if she did not marry him, she would not be there. And that's the fact. So that is the fact, whether people want to accept it or not. We would still, like, if my mother had to stay with my father, Mark Fleming, they would be at Empire Bay, because even when they were still together, Mum wanted the horses and Dad's like, well, he wants the beach. Like, we're so used to the beach lifestyle. And they were going to compromise and move to Empire Bay. They were. And Dad ended up moving to Empire Bay anyway. But they looked at places that had land at Empire Bay. So if my mother, Carol, was going to be still with my father, Mark Fleming, and not with my stepfather, Mark Rackley, they would have ended up at Empire Bay. They would have ended up at Empire Bay on the Central Coast where Dad is. Not in Tamworth where my stepdad is. You understand? If my mother stayed with my father, they would be in Empire Bay where my dad is, not in Tamworth where my stepdad is from. And that's the facts and that's the truth.